pretty much that's what it is. So it's hard. So this is
Our finance committee meeting went over a few minutes, so thank you for bearing with us. We'll go ahead and get started. We actually have two different meetings. Our procedures we're going to go through tonight. One is a public hearing for the calendar, and then we'll go into a regular board meeting. So what I'd like to do is call to order the public hearing for the 2022-2023 calendar with a roll call, please.
Johnson. Here. Moore.
here.
Mark Thomas.
Here.
Bob Thomas.
Here.
Shondell.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Liskus.
Here. Thank you, and we'd like to make a welcome to all visitors who looks like they're all virtually. There's nobody in the room tonight. With that, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda for the public hearing.
Motion to approve. Second.
You have a motion, a second, to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda is approved. Okay. So just as a reminder, this is for the 2022-23 calendar year. During this, the public hearing, we'll be seeking input from the public. There'll be no action during this hearing, but as you can see in a regular board meeting, that will come up under new business item C. So this is, at this point, it's just a public hearing. So with that, we'll open up the floor to any public comments on the 2022 to 2023 school year calendar. And all of our visitors are virtual, so I don't know, Cameron, if you can see anybody, is there a raise hand or want to comment in?
They're all staff too, aren't they?
And I think if for the board, we would just, if I'm correct, we would discuss ours during the regular board meeting if we have comments, or because we're not part of the public hearing, correct? Okay.
I move to adjourn the regular board, or adjourn to the regular board meeting.
Second. We have a motion second to adjourn to the regular board meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that adjourns the public hearing. So with that, we'll go to the regular board meeting, and we'd like to call the regular board meeting to order with a roll call, please.
Johnson. Here. Moore.
Here.
Mark Thomas.
Here.
Bob Thomas.
Here.
Shondell.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Liskus.
Here. At this point, we'd like to welcome any visitors and public forum time. If there's any members of the public that would like to make a brief statement to the board, we'll open up to public comments.
I move to approve the agenda.
Well, we'll do that next. I was waiting for public comments. And I don't see any, but now I will take a motion to approve the agenda, seeing there's no public comments. So moved.
I did, yep.
Thanks.
All right, appreciate the quick call to action there. So, motion and a second to approve the agenda, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We didn't include the addition on the table.
Oh, thank you very much. I guess I need to do that now versus at the end. Okay. There's some additions to your board packets. You should have picked those up in there. So there's some additional bills and some things that came in. And then also and I thought procedurally I was going to add this later, but what will be picked up in here is earlier today, Tom Rubel has submitted his request for resignation and retirement as our district. So we will take that up as our district superintendent. We will take that up as a matter under personnel business procedures down in item new business H. So that is his retirement will come in as part of that consent agenda. So my apologies. I thought I could just talk about it at that time, but so that is an add-on.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'm an aye also. Okay, thank you for keeping me straight on that one. So approve the minutes of the previous meeting in your packet. They were in there. There were 3 sets of meeting minutes. There's from the regular board meeting on the 14th, from the work session on the 28th, and the special meeting on the March 3rd. Any questions or comments on the meeting minutes from those 3 meetings?
Motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings.
We have a motion second to approve the meetings for the previous 3 meetings. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? And the meeting minutes are approved. Moving into new business. First item we have is resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $2 million general obligation school bonds series 2022 and levying a tax for the payment thereof. And if you can see from the notes that Lisa typed up in our board packet, if you want to add anything to Lisa, you can. This is so that we can begin to collect the levy and begin to collect this so that we have the money on hand in order to make that first payment to be later this calendar year based on us issuing bonds here in the next couple of months. So we need to have this included in this year's tax levy is basically what it is. As you remember, we had a $12 million GEO bond approved by the voters. We've issued 10. There's 2 million more to issue. We've been talking with Matt Gillespie about the timing on that one. And I think the sooner we act on that, it's going to be better because there's some signals I've seen from the economists and a trade show I just went to. There could be 3 to 5 Fed rate hikes this year, is what they're predicting, 3 to 5 rate hikes. So the sooner we get this in, the better off we're going to be and get ahead of that curve. And we can talk about rate hikes and inflation later, but this action here is to start the levy process, because if I understand, we do let these bonds up this year, there still will be a bond payment that will be due in the calendar year of 2022, which is the school fiscal year of 22 to 23. So we have to have this on the levy that goes out. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution authorize the issuance of not to exceed $2 million general obligation school bond series 2022 and levying a tax for the payments therefore. Oh, it's a roll call vote. Sorry, thank you. That's correct.
Johnson? Yes. Moore?
Yes.
Mike Thomas?
Yes.
Bob Thomas?
Yes.
Shondell?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
Viskus?
Yes. Okay. So this change orders, we're still going to be on or not?
No, it's pretty simple.
Okay.
It's just
Yeah,
a page.
okay. I didn't know it should be on. So the next item is approval of the Howard Phase 1 change order number 5. And if you read in there, it says this change order reflects a credit for the remaining of the contingency fund not used. It's credited back to the district of $29,000 plus. We like credit change orders. Right?
Motion to approve the Howard Phase 1 change order number 5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the change order number 5 for Howard Phase 1. Roll call, or is that? Nope. Okay, this is just a voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Now we will take up upon the approval of the 2022-2023 school calendar. Do you want to make any comments?
Yeah, I just would say that we go through a very open conversation with our Teachers Association in terms of what our calendar looks like for the up and coming year, 22-23. Met several times. I thank Matt and Julie for really paying attention to this and working with it. I've been in some of the meetings, not all of them. The 2 things that I keep an eye on is our students have to go to 1,080 hours in this calendar like last year's. We have locked in 1,102.5. So our 1,080 hours is well covered in this calendar, and it's been counted hour by hour, day by day. That's number 1. And number 2 is the teacher days is 188, and that coincides with their contracts. So those are the two big things that we pay attention to. The rest of it is, when can we start? How do we try to keep out of June? Do we change any of our breaks? And those folks all talked about that the last time we met. It was all consensus with administrators as well as the teachers group that we had a calendar that we thought we would recommend that you consider after those conversations.
Motion to approve the 2022-2023 school calendar.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the 22 to 23 school calendar. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And the calendar is approved. And my philosophy is I don't have to work it, so whatever the teachers want to work, it's good with me. Okay, next issue is the approval of the teacher retention payments. A little background in the state of Iowa. Well, you can talk more about it, but basically the state of Iowa has allocated funds to pay certain teacher category in classroom teachers, but certain categories within teachers. Go ahead.
The vast majority of our teachers get it. There's a group that are full-time educators that the state did not fund. Don't know specifically what those reasons are. Counselors, there's about 7 of them, Lisa, that didn't get it but they didn't fund it. So I would go on to say that there's, I guess, I'll use the word rumblings across the state of why didn't the state give more to more people? Well, we don't know that. They called it the retention funds. And there were some teachers that just had it with pandemic and a variety of other things. So Lisa has worked. We've got everybody identified that's legal to receive their $1,000. There is some rumblings across the state. Are you going to do anything for any other groups of people? I don't know how all that's going to play out because there's a variety of things that I think a small number of districts are doing. I would tell the board right now, is that totally off the table for us? But at this moment, you got to think about how you're going to fund things. The one thing that we've done in our district when you think of ESSER dollars is we've had pretty deep and rich conversations about how we use our ESSER dollars for HVAC and doing all those projects. So we don't have just the pool of money setting out of ESSER funds to take and use some other place. But it's not necessarily a dead issue. There's, some groups have taken one group of employees that are 12-month employees and they've taken some that are 9-month employees and they're taking some that are part-time and did different amounts in different ways with different justifications. So, but what we had to get in front of you tonight was the action on the teacher state approval.
Just like Tom was saying about what he's hearing in the rumblings in superintendent world. 2 Fridays ago, I was in Des Moines, Ankeny, actually at a meeting for school board presidents across the state, and for the most part, when this subject came up, most of the districts that were like us, that were shrinking enrollment, were just like, we don't have any extra dollars for anybody else, and they're kind of struggling with what to do. So I think right now the recommended action is let's get this approved, since this is state money that's going to be passed through to teachers, is approve this as we have it for that list right now, and take that as our current action, and we'll see down the road if there's some ability to do some other things.
Just out of curiosity, what's the percentages on some of them? What's that mean?
Oh, that just means I'm paying a certain percentage to a certain code.
Different buildings.
Yeah.
You see the long string of numbers, those are like a budget code. Yeah, good question.
I figured that's what it was, but I was like, man, that's state money, that's not what you're saying.
Any questions on the $1,000 teacher retention payout that is being funded by the state?
Motion to approve the teacher retention payments.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve The teacher retention payments of $1,000 is funded by the state of Iowa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No? And that motion passes. Okay. Item E is approving of an equipment purchase through ESSER funds. So Tim, I'm gonna let him talk about, a little bit about what it was. Basically, any equipment over $5,000 has to be approved by the Department of Education. This request has gone up, it's been approved, but we still need to approve it as a board since it's over a $10,000 threshold. So we're getting into the legalities of it. Tim, take it away.
These are 2 new floor scrubbers. We've got 3 in the district. 2 of them are 16 years old. One of them's about 6 years old. I'm just wanting to replace the 2 older units. These units do get used quite a bit, especially during the summertime when we're doing floors. So it'll be a great addition for us.
And you can see the packets, that's a $29,336 when you include the 2 scrubbers and the batteries that come with them.
I move to approve the equipment.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the equipment purchase of the 2 scrubbers as stated. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for getting that done.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, next item is discussion of the 2022 to 23 budget and set a date and time for the public hearing. I will let Lisa take it away.
So you should have a handout, it says Centerville preliminary budget discussion. I know it's a lot to look at, the stuff that was in the packet, so I tried to condense things that were important. So just go to page 1. I've included a calendar year history of the supplemental state aid percentage, just for reference. If you'll notice, in past years, in 06 to 010, or to 10, it was 4%, so it's been declining since then, and we've seen a bit of an increase, but not anything significant. Budget guarantee, which we will be hopefully approving on the next item, the district needs this year because of declining enrollment. It's a mechanism to postpone the impact of enrollment changes. If this year's regular program district cost is less than 101% of last year's RPDC, the district receives an amount of spending authority equal to get the district to 1% growth. This year, that is $54,144, and the amount is all property tax. The next page is just showing you that budget guarantee calculation. So new money growth with the budget guarantee is $98,130 for next year, which percentage-wise of new money, that's only 1%. So the 2.5% doesn't really mean anything when you have declining enrollment. The next slide is an estimated at this time proposed property tax rate. And it just kind of breaks it down into the different levies that makes up the total property tax rate. The subtotal of the general fund levy, that could include cash reserve, but it doesn't this year because the district can't do cash reserve levy. That's why it's a decrease from past years, because we're cash heavy, so our fund balance, we can't do that anymore. Instructional support levy can be spent on any general fund purpose, and the management levy is that is set by dollar amount, and I set that at $150,000, which is just a little bit more than last year. That will pay our property tax insurance, any possible early retirements in the future, unemployment compensation. Then you have your voted PEPA levy and your regular PEPA levy, and your debt service levy, which you just did the pre-levy, so that moved that up to $2.70. So the total property tax right now is, rate is 16.95575. And I think I put in my notes that that is on par with what we had sent out to the public when we did our GEO bond. We're trying to stay close to what we told them when we did that. The next slide is just to let you know of the expiration of voted levies. Instructional support levy, final fiscal year is 2026, so we'll, at some point, we'll have to get started with that again. Voter PEPA levy is till 2031. And then the next page is just kind of, I don't know that you always see it all written out in one form. This is all of the district debt at this point. And so you can see we have 8 issues so far. And then we're planning to do another one for sales tax next year. So on the right there, you'll see all of the payments that will have to be made just in FY23. And we plan for those, so.
So, can you explain a little bit more what those are?
What
Because, yeah, I mean, what,
Well, okay, so the 2021 GEO bonds and the 2022 GEO bonds, that's gonna be for the high school. Series 2016 was the wrestling room, and 18, well, the rest of them, except for the last one, the 2020 Howard PK and athletic, that was for what we're doing this year, for Howard Phase 1 and 2, preschool and athletics. So anything in between there was actually for Lakeview. Those are all loans or bonds for Lakeview. Does that answer your question?
yeah,
Okay. And then the next series that we do, the sales tax bond series that we're gonna do next, is also gonna be the high school. The next page is just a historical tax rate broken down. Just so you can see, I just have from 2017 to 2023. So if you'll notice in 2023, our general fund levy is $9.99 approximately. So if you'll notice in past, it was much higher, but that's because of the cash reserve levy. So since we can't do the cash reserve levy, that's why it's not as high this year. So at some point, if we are able to do that again, that part of the levy will increase in the coming years. So 2022 and 2023, that's where the debt service, $2.70 comes in there. So we've stayed at 1873 or below since 2017. And then under the resources and requirements for the publishing that we have to do in the paper, I just wanted to make sure to talk about anything that was a significant increase or a decrease or just a difference so that you had an understanding of why those numbers might be a certain way. So under the resources, and this would just be in your packet, but the nutrition program sales, I'm gonna budget for normal sales, although I'm not sure at this time whether or not there's gonna be free meals extended into 2023. So budgeting for that, there's no reason not to. Under the IDEA and other federal sources, the decrease for the FY23 year is because hopefully the majority of the HVAC ESSER funds are gonna be spent in FY22, so we won't have as many, we'll still be spending ESSER funds in 2023, but just not the bulk of it. General long-term debt proceeds fluctuations represent the various sales tax bond and general obligation bond issues we've been doing. Transfers in fluctuate because those are debt sinking entries for bond payments, and so I have to put a certain amount in each year to make those payments, and those can fluctuate because of that. And also that's where, if you're doing an ESSER project in another fund, you're gonna see a transfer in and a transfer out between operating and general fund and the PEPAL sales tax fund. So you have to show that, and that's where that's shown. Proceeds of fixed asset dispositions is less in FY '23 because the FY '22 amounts were for insurance proceeds from roof damage and also for the sale of Central. So obviously we won't have that next year. Big changes in the requirements, anything that was under instruction, student support services. Student support services would include nursing, and we've added some of those, instructional staff support services, plant operation and maintenance, anything to do with student transportation. Fluctuations of those are due to ESSER expenses that we're spending in each of those categories. The teacher retention payments that I had to add in there, and early retirement payouts for this year that I didn't budget for or know about last year when I did the budget at this time. Non-instructional programs, FY '22 and '23 looks different than FY '21 because FY '21 wasn't a full normal school year, even though we did provide nutrition meals. We didn't have a la carte, and not everyone, we didn't have the extent of the meals. Facilities acquisition fluctuations are for the various past and future projects that we're doing and have been doing. And then also in the requirements, debt service and transfers in are all, that also is where you show the debt sinking amounts and the transfers for ESSER projects. And I would just preface this by also saying that we're doing a little bit more. These are estimations. We're going to do get some more questions answered about income surtax and how that could affect the property tax rate if we make some changes. So this is an estimation, and once we get that, that will be published in the paper, and our budget public hearing will be April 11th at 6:30 p.m. Does anyone have any questions?
I wrote down some comments, and just, I was going to mention that the tax rate is an estimate. And the finance committee did have some questions on how the incomes, the Iowa income tax surcharge works versus property tax. We wanted to get some clarification, so we're going to schedule a meeting and get some, because there's some, it affects the levy rate, and we just want to understand how it works. But the big thing about having a 27 student head count decrease, that's an impact of about $195,000. So that's $195,000 less than we have to work with than if we had those, which is one of the reasons why we are $54,000 back in the 1% budget guarantee. So it's not good news. It's not good news for the head count. It's not good news for the district. It's not good news financially. So there's a lot of things that we're working on, trying to figure out how to make all that work next year. What I will say on the levy rate is we are keeping our promise that the board made when we had the bond drive. There was one promise that was made that we would not exceed 1873, and we're keeping that promise. Not only keeping that promise, but it's coming way down. Now, some of that does have to do with property valuation and so forth. But the big thing is we're not having to do the cash management levy anymore, and we're able to pay for this and lower the property tax levy rate, and that's good news. What I will say is that we went back and Lisa made the count, the finance committee, we're within about a nickel of our estimate. So not only did we say we're not going to exceed 1873, but we thought we would be somewhere around $17, and we're within about a nickel of what we thought we would be when we made that bond drive, a year ago. So I think that's a promise kept to the property taxpayers. So I think that needs to be kind of stated and put out there that it's very rare that you can find a school district that can take out a $12 million bond and lower their levy rate. So we are keeping those promises to the public.
Another thing I had in my notes that I didn't talk about here is that valuations are up by 5.4%. The average, they tell us, is always 2%. So I consulted with the assessor as well as Matt Gillespie and Larry Siegel. They said the increase is due to the increase on the value of residential and by 18 to 20% and 7 to 8% on commercial. So the consultants say that the overall increase makes sense, although it didn't to me at first. But once I got the explanation,
It's math. You know, the real dollars are staying the same. You know, the valuations go up, the rates are gonna go down. We just think that we're, kind of the important thing is that we're kind of staying constant on dollars. And even though some of the property valuation is gonna go up, the levy rate's gonna go down correspondingly, so.
I have a question, I don't know if it's the right, I don't know, but, so with the budget, with these numbers, as far as how you plan for the next school year and things like that, as far as programs and staff and everything, is that, I guess, how's that fit into this budget? Is everything looking?
So as a board, our role, so Lisa prepares the budget, our role as a board is to look at it, the finance committee is to look at it, giving guidance back both to Tom and Lisa and go through it, and then what happens is that budget's approved, it's up to the superintendent to execute the budget.
Right, and I guess looking at these numbers, do you see any major changes to programs or anything?
Okay.
That's what I guess I'm looking
Okay,
at.
that's a good question. Are there any changes to the programming?
We don't,
Or is it too early to tell?
well, it's a little bit too early to tell, but since any school district's budget is about 83% of it, or whatever, 85, is salaries and benefits. So we scrutinize personnel. And that's when we go back to the early retirement in terms of what was our savings there. And we look at all of our positions. So what we're doing right now is just trying to piece things together in terms of what we think the money we're going to have. And I would tell the board right now, anytime you lose 27 students and you get 1% new money, the way you're gonna have to react to that is by having fewer employees. And there isn't really any other way to do it. I mean, I always say you can stop buying a lot of toilet paper, but you're not gonna make up the kind of dollars you need to make up. So it's through employees, and I'm not gonna give any examples, because when I give examples, people automatically think that then that's what's going to happen. But it's just when we have vacancies, how do we either not fill those and still maintain the highest level of services we can, or do we put something else together, you know? So we're looking at that now, and we will, with 27 students less carrying over and the 1%, there's no doubt that we're probably gonna have to, we've already saved 2 positions that we won't be filling due to early retirement, so that helps us. Are there others that we have open? We'll see, and hopefully we can make things work with fewer people. If we were, you know, sometimes, again, I don't want to attempt to send the wrong messages or anything, but sometimes people will say, well, why don't you drop this sport because they have a small number of kids? Well, that could be true, but we may be investing $2,000 in one coach. There's very little equipment involved. We've got the facilities here. So when you start talking about that, you're really picking at things that aren't going to be difference makers in the big scheme of things. So we look at how we look at personnel. That's the number one way.
And I guess that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
I didn't know if it was too early to.
No, I
Well,
think,
I think of it as like, when we look at our budget, to me, this isn't what I look at when we do the budget. It's the one that,
the 5-year projection.
yeah, because then we said, okay, we needed to lose 2 teachers this year. Well, we've accomplished that, it sounds like. Next year, we'll need to lose 2 teachers, and that was just with planning on losing 10 students a year.
Right. That's what
And
I-
so, Lisa plugs all those numbers in, and then we can look at that and kind of see how we're doing.
And that's, I guess, what shocked me is because in that 5-year projection, it was on 10 students a year, here we're down 27, so.
But I think your question is, how will this budget affect programming, is the right question, that's a good question.
And I'm not correcting you, Brooke, by any means, but she said like 2 teachers. Well, it could be any certified staff. That wouldn't be necessarily a classroom teacher. It could be different types of positions. It could be where maybe you end up with 2 half-times with 2 different positions. So just try to make it work with the numbers of kids we have in programs. We have an obligation to do the best we can to keep cuts away from the academic classroom. And you can do that in some ways if the opportunity arises.
Any other questions on the budget? There's no action on it, this is just a budget discussion.
You do have to have action on setting the.
Oh,
date.
I'm sorry. We have to have action on setting the public hearing. I was gonna say, we do have to have a public hearing.
I moved to set the date and time for the public hearing, I think you said March 19th, or
April 11th.
April 11th, I was way off, okay.
I second that.
Okay. We'll go ahead and do the vote, then I'll make my comment. So we have a motion to second, present the public hearing by, on April 11th for the budget discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no? All right, the motion passes. What I will say is that the public hearing, the date is April 11th. What I was gonna say is, then you have to submit it by April 15th to,
Yeah, to
Yep.
the Department of Management
Yep.
as well as the county auditor.
yep, so right after that, so we do have to approve the budget on the 11th. That's where I was going with that. I forgot we had to set the meeting, or set the public hearing, but we do have to have it submitted, we have to have it done by the 11th, so that she's got time to get it submitted to the county and the state.
Quick question, I guess, on
Yep.
that, I know about that, but, so, we lowered the rate.
Yep.
And I guess, with staying in that promise with the bond referendum, is there, it's just completely opposite of my head there, so, if we increase that by 0.5%, the levy, does that give us significant funding?
Well.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So there's different parts of school finance, and Tom and Lisa will tell you, and Brooke from the finance meetings, I have a hard time wrapping my head around the complexities of the laws that the state knows and what the constraints they have on there, but we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, either the property tax or coming through state money. So we can't just say, we want to raise our levy 0.5% and generate another $500,000. That doesn't do us any good, because what comes with that through our head count is the state says you can spend a certain number of dollars per student, and that becomes your spending authority. So you can't raise more money than your spending authority. You can't spend more money than your spending authority. So the state does control how much we can spend per student head count, and we can't levy any more than that.
Yeah, if you look at the property tax breakdown, general fund levy, the only way that we could fluctuate that would be cash reserve, and we can't do that. So we can't do anything with that part of the levy. We can't do anything with the instructional support levy, or loaded PEPAL, or debt service. I mean, because we want to keep it at 270. So really, the only thing that we can fluctuate with is the management levy. And you don't want to levy way more than what you need. Another mechanism we have is working with the property tax versus the income surtax. So there might be something that we could do there, but we're gonna have discussions about that later.
So there's a correlation between property tax and income surtax, and I don't understand the correlation, so I've asked to set up a meeting with either Matt Gillespie or Larry Siegel to explain how those two things work. But the bottom line is the budget, there's basically maximums that you can do as allowed by law.
And my simple explanation is there's two buckets, there's management and cash. We can't put any more cash in our bucket, and pretty much you can't spend it anyway. We're
Yeah.
like, we have cash, but you can't spend it. And then you have your management fund, which we do our insurance, retirement, what was the other one, taxes? Unemployment. And so that one we can fluctuate because we, that helps us keep ours under the 1873 or whatever that we agree upon. But it really doesn't help us spend anything unless we have a retirement package or we have increased insurance or we have unemployment. It's like you have money but you can't spend it.
You have to have cash reserve so that you meet the state's requirements for solvency ratio, but you can't necessarily spend that cash. And what they're trying to make sure is that districts don't all of a sudden go cash poor and they can't pay their bills. And there's been a district in the state that basically the state came, a very large district, that a couple years ago the state came in and managed their budget because they got so low and so out of whack. And what the state's trying to prevent us from having to do that by saying, be solvent, have cash. Well, we've got that, but the state also says you can't tax your property owners at such a high level that you have all this cash that you can't use anyway, so there's a maximum for that, and we hit that maximum a couple years ago. So we're solvent, we got cash reserves, we're in good financial health. You can only spend the amount of money that the state lets you spend. So there's a couple different buckets that you deal with.
That was, like I said, that was terrific for learning part of it. I guess what another part of it that was leaning towards, so, and we haven't built it in as part of a priority plan, but if someone were to say, well, why do you have to get rid of those two teachers from that, early retirement or whatever, why can't you just raise it half a percentage?
Yeah, you can't.
So that helps me give me a better answer as far as.
Right.
So you can't like save in other aspects either really, because that was like Tom's example of most of our money goes to salaries. So even when you try and cut other costs that the school district might have, it's like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So really salaries is the only way, and you're not gonna decrease the whole staff salaries. So the only thing you can do is have fewer teachers. Well, we have 27 fewer students, so we should be able to get by with fewer teachers.
Yeah. And the whole issue with spending authority from the state is they're trying to keep parity across school districts across the state. That we're spending equally per student across the state is one way to look at that. But the net impact of losing 27 students is we're losing about $195,000 of spending authority.
In our student enrollment, we were predicting we're gonna lose 10 kids a year. In some years we gain, and this twice. Where are we at in the long range? Are we up that 10?
I don't remember how many we were up that 1 year. We didn't look at that. Definitely we didn't look at it today.
Okay.
But I don't remember how many we gained that 1 year. Do you remember, Tom?
Quite a bit.
14?
Yeah, we were, I think, 17
Yeah.
1 year.
So we have to be close to being, in
That's
the long
what-
scheme of
that's-
things,
Yeah.
still staying at around a 10 average.
I will tell you, most rural school districts in the state of Iowa are declining enrollment.
Right.
The only comment I would make, and I'm not about as lost as everybody on money, but the management fund, you can spend it on insurance. And it would seem that if we could increase that, and if we could provide better insurance benefits for our employees.
Property and liability insurance,
Yeah.
not health.
It's not
Not health insurance, okay, that's either where I'm going. Sorry.
But yes, I mean, I.
We should have clarified that when we
agree
said
with
it.
Dr.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, corrected.
There's the money.
Just kidding.
It is complex. It is complex. And it is, the more you dig into it, the more complex it gets.
Well, you know, about the time you think maybe got a handle on part of it, there's another little twist.
For 2.5 years, every finance committee meeting, I say something and something new comes up that is just,
Yeah.
it's complex.
Lisa, thanks for doing this, because it all made sense, and you gave me that stuff this afternoon, that was just confusing as hell.
I'm trying to include everything, but then I,
Well, you got the meat, and this had too much stuff, and it just overwhelming.
All right, so we've already taken action on that. Are there any other questions on the budget? Okay, so we'll have the public hearing on the 11th, and then we do need to take action on that date so that we do get it set up to the county and the state. Okay. The next thing is a roll call action item to approve the 101% budget guarantee resolution. So as Lisa talked about, since we are declining enrollment, the state's going to guarantee that we have at least 1% growth in our budget. They are going to fund that to the tune of $54,144. So the roll call vote would be to pass a resolution to request from the state $54,144 to help us with the 1% budget guarantee.
that's property tax.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's property tax. I misspoke.
Motion to approve the 101% budget guarantee resolution.
Second.
We have a motion second for the 1% budget guarantee resolution.
Johnson?
Yes?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was gonna say all in favor, but it's roll call, you're right.
Moore?
Yes.
Mike Thomas?
Yes.
Bob Thomas?
Yes.
Shonda?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
Liskus?
Yes. So the motion passes, okay. All right, so the next thing is approve personnel business procedures, and as board practice, we do take these as a whole unless there's a question or a reason by someone from the board that wants to separate something out there. And as a reminder, we would include in this, as we talked at open comments, that Tom has submitted his retirement, and we do have, I've learned there's a lengthy process you gotta go through. The state doesn't make it easy, just like on the budget, but we've kind of come to terms on all of that. And we've just, Tom and I have discussed it, and I just want to publicly thank Tom for his service for 6 years to the school district. I think, Tom's leadership through COVID especially, because that's my time on the board, is mostly COVID-related time. I think Tom has done an exemplary job leading us and guiding us through his tenure here. I'm sorry to see him go, but I also understand that at this time, he just feels it's time to retire and move on to his next phase of life. And so I just want to publicly thank Tom for his service. And you have been, in the, 4 months I've been as a board president, been a great mentor to me as well. And I am going to truly miss that. So with that, if we would like to, if you have any discussions on personnel business procedures, and after we have discussion, we can go ahead and have a motion and a second to approve.
Motion to approve personnel business procedures.
Should we pull out Tom and do the activity pass or anything?
Oh, we'll take care of that later. We'll do that later. We'll make sure it's taken care of later.
I second.
We have a motion, a second to approve the personnel business procedures as listed in our packet and discussed. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much. And with that, committee reports, what I will say is there was so much at the finance committee meeting. I did not take coherent notes. I will tell you, and I will owe you some notes on this later. I will say briefly, we talked about the teacher retention pay, which we passed. We talked about the budget, which is most of the meeting, which we discussed. We talked about Tim and the ESSER equipment, which we took action on. As a reminder, we will have the CEA teacher contract negotiations coming up. we just had, basically said, it's coming up, we've not received the first opening request from the CEA, but when that is, then the negotiating committee will move into action on that. As far as insurance, property and liability, is gonna go up quite a bit, based on 14% is what we're getting an estimate. That does come out of the management fund. It is in part due to the increased valuation of the school, the district's property, with all the construction work we did at the athletic facility, especially this last year. But they've also reported a lot of storm damage across their insured portfolio in the state of Iowa. And so they've had some consecutive years with numerous storms that's driving that. We do think we're gonna have really good information on health insurance, that rate's gonna be very low. Like
The same.
the same, low, like up 0.13%. Not 13, not 1.3, but 0.13. So that's pretty good news for us on that one. And then there's a couple other issues that we'll just, I probably need to get some more information before we pass on to everybody, so. But that's the bulk of the finance committee report.
One thing, about a year ago, I think it was, and I think Amy came, we were talking about the insurance policy. Did we ever do anything, because there was talk about trying to,
Raise the deductible?
Yes.
Yeah, we did that.
did we?
Well,
We will be doing that, is what it sounded
Are
like.
we, oh,
just here recently, Tim and Amy and I met to talk about some of the overall property of the district and, all of our assets and everything that we've been doing, and then also that, but we have not done that this year.
I thought we moved to increase the deductible last year.
I thought we had 3 options, and I don't remember ever.
Hearing
Do
back
anything
on that
with it.
final, I do think
Yeah.
that seems right.
I think it got lost.
I'll have to go back and look, because I thought, I remember that we did move to.
Because we picked like a
deductible.
medium one and we didn't have the numbers for it or something
Right,
like
something
that.
like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Or a higher one and we
There was a
didn't have
higher
it.
one where we could have got a better,
which,
But maybe.
it plateaued where the benefit was, the cost versus benefit was. But I thought we passed that point.
I'm thinking I remember.
don't remember.
All right, so we need,
I'll
okay,
look into that, you know, okay.
all right. My memory is that we did do that.
My memory is that we did do that too. I do remember exactly what you're talking about, and I thought we did finalize it, but sometimes we walk away from a meeting and for whatever reason, we don't. So we can follow, we'll know.
And maybe I'm wrong, I guess.
You say, oh, no,
Maybe you did it and forgot.
that was how it was.
That's what we did ask Amy factor, but because it's like, there's like a $10,000 per incident, a 25 and a 50,000 per limit increase. And what we went with was the $25,000, take the deductible to $25,000.
Because we were waiting on information and we found out that we can't pay the deductible from the management.
Right. And the 50,000, as the rates were coming down, as the deductibles going up, 25 was like the break point, because to get to a $50,000 deductible, there was not a comparable savings in the premiums. Yeah, it was 10, 25, and 50 were the 3 numbers. All right, we'll just wait to hear back from Lisa on that one, I guess. Okay, does the facilities committee have a report from your last facilities committee meeting?
No, I don't think so, Bob, do we?
No. At some point, I think we need, you guys meet with our 2 experts. I think the whole board, some of these people have never seen that guy at all, or either one of those 2 people, but I think we need to have them here.
Well, like Larry,
I forgot.
we've only seen Larry once and that was when we first hired him. And wasn't Matt with us all not too long ago?
The subscription that we pay for Larry's services, I believe does include a like a one-time, I think, presentation each year to the board on, I think, whatever issue we want to talk to him about, so we can set something like that.
You're talking with Matt Gillespie? Having him present?
Both of them.
Matt or Larry. But yeah, I wouldn't have Larry talk to us. He talks to Lisa.
Okay.
But there's just seeing him do all that and the little slide stuff, you just understand things better. But we're gonna end up with 3 of you who know a whole lot and 4 of us who don't know nothing. And I think we can't allow that to happen.
Okay. And I would also take this opportunity to say, encourage everybody next November to go to the Iowa School Board Association Convention because they have classes on district finance. And that's where I got my base foundation. I will tell you, I learned a lot more in here. But that's the base foundation where they go through that. So I'd encourage everybody to attend those things because there's 3 levels. There's a 101, a 201, a 301. And I went to the 101. Well, you guys, when we were there together, we went to that one. And then 2 years later, when I went to it was just like, only because time had passed being on the finance committee that I remember some of that, but there was so much of that was, I remember seeing before, but it was being refreshed. So I would encourage everybody to take time to go to the school board convention because there's a lot of good training. And I think if you wouldn't have that training, then to hear Matt talk about that. But Matt can't, or Larry can't provide Finance 101.
That's true.
As well as going to the convention because what Matt's going to talk about, you need the foundation of those courses from the Iowa School Board Association convention. So, but that's a good point is to have them come and talk through that. And it's been a while since we did our 5-year projection. So those are good comments. Financial reports, bills in your packets, and there was some additions throughout the day. So,
I have a question on one, the water company, Central,
On what?
a water bill for Central.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. Well, it's because people were there.
I would like to think we're probably in our last one.
I think that was a partial, yeah, I think it was a partial, when Emma brought it to me, I think it was like a small amount of days, but I'll look into it.
I didn't think it was, yeah, because I didn't know when the sale was final.
It was, January 17th is when we shut everything off, so I'll make sure. Or we took things out of our name,
Yep.
I should say.
Yeah, transfer the name. It's probably just a timing, it should be, my guess. I guess when I saw that, my thought was timing, so.
But I will clarify.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the financial reports or bills?
Motion to approve the financial reports.
We have a motion to approve the financial reports, we have a second.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the financial reports and pay the bills. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Tom, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, just a couple things. We're still engaged with working with companies on the nutrition program. So that's still moving forward. And I believe it was Tim and Brooke and Mike. And so that's moving forward. Poor Lisa, at the outset of this thing, we thought it was going to be like pretty easy. It hasn't been at all with the DE and putting out requests for proposals. 9 different companies had to be sent out. We had a person from the DE, and she hasn't been mean-spirited about it, but it's just more procedure than what we thought. We're not giving up on it. We can still do it. It's just taking us a little bit longer. And the companies aren't in a panic at all because they've negotiated contracts with districts in the middle of July, and so we're good on it, and we'll keep you posted on it so that those folks that want to be engaged in the choosing of a nutrition food service program, if you decide to do that, there's a rubric that has to be filled out and so on. So that's still in the works, and then of course, we as mentioned earlier, we have not began the salary compensation process yet, and we always start with the CEA. I think they're getting close to asking for a date to sit down and talk, and of course that's the catalyst for settling with all of our teachers. And then that goes into support staff, our administrators, and all of those things. So that's still out there to be done. And once we know that, then it goes back to, you know, how much money are we spending on salaries and benefits? We know what our insurance is going to be, so that's helpful. That's really helpful. So that's what I would have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go around the table. Brooke, you got anything before we go?
I just want to say thanks to Tom, because when we hired him, school culture was one of the main things, and I think you've definitely succeeded in that. And facilities was another, and we've obviously done more than ever in the history of the school, so I really appreciate you being our superintendent.
Tim?
I'd like to say thanks to Tom also.
Mike?
Job done.
Chris, anything?
Of course, I wasn't around when we hired you, but I appreciate my time on the board with you.
Mike, you go to retirement.
You want to talk a little bit about the legislative issues? Like, there's one there that they're gonna reduce the number of APAs. Does that make sense to anybody?
No, it doesn't make sense, and it did, I don't think it did not get any legs, so it fell by the wayside. The only thing that I would say, that I don't like talking about it because I find it to be, in one person's opinion, that's a public educator, is the whole voucher thing. And it's when we take public dollars into private schools, and I'm not against private schools, I'm just saying that public dollars are public dollars, and I don't know where that's at. It was still on the bubble the other day as being a very hotly contested. So that's been the thing that has, because when we're talking here about losing 27 students, and then you have another mechanism for losing more money out of your public school. The one thing, and I want to be careful because I don't want to imply anything, but it's really important that kids learn. And kids, it's really important that they're in environments where they can learn. And just giving, and we've got some great private schools, but my fear is there could be occasions where the money doesn't maybe end up supporting the academic achievement that those kids need. And I'll just leave it at that because it's pretty contested, but as of not yesterday, today's Monday, it was Friday that it appeared that maybe it was not going to pass and go anywhere. That would be legislatively, the transgender thing, I don't know how to talk about. I don't even feel comfortable because it's all over the place and so on. But it did pass, and it drew quite a number of people that had feelings on both sides of the issue.
I guess I don't know what that one is. I'll look it up on my own.
I have a question. In light of the women's wrestling program in Indian Hills, which seems to be a glowing success. I mean, if you look at where all those students come from, I mean, they're literally all over the United States and territories. Does Centerville plan to offer a girls wrestling program?
I was hoping Parker had not left, but he did. Yes, we've had some conversations about it.
I think the state, and I won't get the name right, but the Girls Athletic Association has said that they're going to start to sanction that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really the first step, is to have the state approve that.
And we had the one girl this year that did quite well.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, it's a,
They come here for Indian Hills from all over because places like Florida and over there, they don't have any women's wrestling.
they have it at the high school level,
Not at the college.
but not at the college level. I think Indian Hills, it was kind of a stroke of genius, honestly. And it seems like Centerville School District, we work really well together with Indian Hills, and I think we could maybe attract students
Yeah.
with that program.
That was a Matt Thompson planned event to grow the Indian Hills campus in Centerville. And I think it's probably exceeded everybody's expectations as far as success. Not just getting students here, but just what it's doing and their competitive success.
I'd like to see them bring softball over. I think that would work very well.
Interesting. Okay, well, those are Indian Hill questions.
Yeah, no, but there's conversations because it is growing sport for high school Iowa ladies.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, thank you all for your comments, and again, after every meeting, I want to go around and give everybody a chance to talk and reflect on the meeting a little bit. And I appreciate the board's interaction with everything. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You can stay here and hear it. Thank you.